divorcé, puis j'ai appelé ça le palais des champions. OK? C'était vraiment... Ça, c'est mon appart. Puis c'est ça le titre du livre. C'est un peu... Ça attire les losers, les trous de cul, les deux de pique, les mongols, les attardés, les weird. Tu comprends? Mais en même temps, en tout cas...
May I introduce you to Patrick Henley, an artist who has been making comics for 30 years, and nevertheless he's most probably unknown to you. His pseudonym Henriette Valium or Henriette Valium stems from his fanzine days when it was allegedly fashionable that men used women's names and vice versa. In the 90s, Henriette made a vain attempt to change his name back to Patrick, but somehow the name stuck. He's a French-Canadian living in Montreal, Quebec, under highly precarious circumstances. The title of his book, The Palace of Champions, from Conundrum Press, addresses this in a sardonically ironic way, because the Palace of Champions is nothing more than this garage which he uses as one-room living and working space. So in more than just one sense, he's the prisoner of his own vicious cycles of his precarious lifestyle. But in his own interpretation, he obviously has succeeded in not making any career whatsoever. In his interpretation, he never sold out, which is very probably very true. His whole work can be seen as a big fuck you to each and everyone. His all over of converging and interlocking creatures in different states of melting is almost indecipherable. Each square centimeter is filled with ornaments that become beings, that become ornaments, and back again. This stuff causes eye cancer, and it's so all over and too bulky that the gutter simply has to eat all the middle parts. The constant use of the swastika as a decorative element, or his mocking of comic fans as pathetic creatures, or the continuing mentioning of drugs as an important source of inspiration, that all isn't too helpful either when you want to create some best-selling book, which never was obviously his intention. He simply doesn't keep with any rule whatsoever. His English is pretty fucked up. Hey, I can relate to that. It's actually Henriette's own translation from his original French text, which seems to be fucked up as well. And story-wise, you can think of narratives that would have more appeal for the masses than a brawl with some rabid dogs or repetitive introspections about the artist's rectum and the stuff he squeezes out of that. By the way, under nearly every character you find a well-shaped little turd. You can get the impression that Henriette Valium would have coated the book with barbed wire if that would have been possible. But that's probably the wrong impression, because the colors and the strange beauty of these weird ornaments in their horror vacui all over create something that's really appealing, at least to me. It's a wild hybrid of Keith Haring, Hieronymus Bosch, and Where's Waldo, and Clay Wilson, and Tintin and the Smurfs. Smurfs with boobs and dicks, mind you. It's possibly not sane to look at these pictures too long, which leads to another question. How crazy you have to be to create such stuff? I have to confess that when I saw Valium's art, my first idea was not to compare it with Hieronymus Bosch, but more with outsider art like the fantastic and imaginative pictures you can find, for an example, in the famous collection Prinzhorn, which collected art from schizophrenic people and people with other mental issues. Especially the Austrian August Waller, August, came to my mind, not just because of his remote resemblance with Henriette valium, but because of his strange and naive occupation with the swastika as a symbol. Don't understand me wrong, I had worked for 10 years in a home with people with mentally difficulties, schizophrenia and even Down syndrome and stuff like that, and I always thought of them and still think of them with great affection. Or in other words, when I was with them, I felt that they were the normal ones and the outside world was filled with crazy and mad people. Nevertheless, I don't want to say that valium is the case for the asylum. No way. But I think it's pretty obvious that Henriette rides on some demons in his subconsciousness that he hardly is able to tame. Or better, it would be the last thing that would come to his mind, to tame them. Thanks for listening and watching. Goodbye.